everyone, my name is Catherine Daleo and I am the founder of Millennials in Motion magazine, and we are an online magazine community platform local to Las Vegas, and our mission is to combine content, conversation, and community to develop unity. And today I am reading with the Nevada Conservation League, and we're going to be reading the Berenstain Bears, Trouble with Pets, and Chrysanthemum. Really quick before I get started, if you hear any background noise, there's some construction going on, so just to be aware. Alrighty, so The Berenstain Bears, Trouble with Pets by Stan and Jan Berenstain. On the front here it says, "Cubs don't expect the big job they will get when they jump up and down and beg for a pet." "Goodbye, little bird," said Sister Bear. "Fly away and be happy." On her finger was the sparrow that the bear family had taken in because it had an injured leg. Papa Bear had made a splint for it out of toothpick and strip of tape. Brother and sister had named it Tweety and had taken care of it for about a week. But now it was time to remove the splint and let the bird go back to nature, where it belonged. It hopped on a twig and then took wing. Before you could say Tweety, it was out of sight. "I'm going to miss our little bird," said Sister sadly. "Tweety was such a nice little pet." "Tweety wasn't a pet, dear," said Mama Bear. "Not a real pet, anyway. It was an injured bird that we helped get well so it could go back to the forest." "Why don't we get a real pet, Mama?" asked Sister. "Other cubs have pets," said Brother. "Why can't we? Cousin Freddie has a dog, Lizzie Bruin has a cat, Too Tall Grizzly has a snake." "Well," said Mama as they climbed the front steps of their treehouse, "I suppose it's something to think about." "Gee, Mama," said Brother, "what's there to think about?" "There's quite a lot to think about," she said. "A pet is a big responsibility. A pet has to be fed, cared for, kept clean. What do you think, Papa?" "I think a dog would be nice," said Papa. "But a dog is an especially big responsibility," protested Mama. "A dog needs shots, it needs to be trained and walked, and then there are dog laws." "A big dog," said Papa, "about so high that you can go fetch and play frisbee." "We'll take care of it, Mama," cried the cubs. "We promise, we promise." "Remember now," said Mama as they piled into the car, "we're going to the pet shop just to look. Choosing a pet, especially a dog, is serious business." "Speaking of dogs," said Papa, pointing to a sign as they drove by Farmer Ben's place. "Puppies available, see Farmer Ben," said Brother, reading the sign aloud. "How about that? Ben's dog Bess must have had pups." May we look at them, Mama?" cried Sister. "Oh, please, Mama, please." Before Mama could answer, Papa said, "No harm in looking," and pulled into Farmer Ben's driveway. Ben's dog Bess had indeed had pups, 5 of the cutest, roly-poliest little balls of fur you've ever seen. Farmer Ben picked one up and put it in Sister's arms. "What beautiful brown eyes," she said. "May we have this one, Mama? May we please?" "Most pups have brown eyes," said Ben, "but I do think that one is the pick of the litter. It's yours if you like, a gift from Bess and me." "Goodness," said Mama. "That's very generous of you, Ben. I really don't know what to say." "Yes, say yes," shouted the cubs, jumping up and down. "It certainly is a cute little thing," she said. "All right then, yes." Brother and Sister were overjoyed. Thank you, Farmer Ben," they shouted. Then, after they had calmed down a bit, Brother said, "Our pup's going to need a name. How about King, or Prince, or maybe Duke?" Farmer Ben, who was an expert in such matters, took a quick look under the pup's tail and said, "The only trouble with those names, Brother Bear, is that this pup is a girl." Of course, they couldn't take their new pet home with them. It would need its mother's milk for a couple more weeks. But there was plenty of puppy talk as they headed home. Talk about names, talk about where the puppy would sleep, and talk about who would take care of it. "Remember now," said Mama, "you promised to take care of the new pup, to feed and water it, and to clean up after it when it has accidents." "What kind of accidents?" asked Sister. "We'll discuss that later," Mama said. Brother and Sister couldn't believe how lucky they'd been. A new puppy for their very own. That night, before falling asleep, they thought about some of the wonderful things they would do with their new pet. Sister thought about dressing it in doll's clothes and pushing it in her doll carriage. She thought about introducing it to her stuffed animals. Perhaps they could have a tea party. Brother's thoughts were quite different. He thought about winning the blue ribbon at the Bear County Country Dog Show. He thought how fine it would be to shout "mush" as his great dog pulled him through the deep snow. But, of course, a puppy isn't a toy to be dressed in doll's clothes. It's a living creature with a mind and a nature of its own. It would be a long time before the pup could compete for blue ribbons. It would be an even longer time before it could pull anything through the snow. There was no question about it. Brother and Sister had a lot to learn about puppies. So Mama and Papa decided that a trip to the library was in order. They took out a book called Puppy Care. When the big day came, the Bear family had a puppy care plan all worked out. First, they stopped off at the police station to get her registered. "What's the little lady's name?" asked Officer Margaret. The pup would need a license with her name and address on it in case she got lost, but brother and sister still hadn't agreed on a name. What to do? "It seems to me that Officer Margaret just named our pup," said Mama. "Little Lady sounds like an excellent name to me," so the pup left the police station with a name as well as a license. Next, a quick stop at the pet shop for a puppy harness and leash, and then a very important stop at the vet's for a checkup and shots. Little Lady didn't like the shots one bit. Brother and sister knew just how she felt. They even sort of knew how parents must feel when their cubs have to get shots. Now it was time to introduce Little Lady to her new home. The Bears had already gotten food for her and had made a puppy box out of a cardboard carton and an old blanket. They had placed the box in the kitchen, where it was nice and warm, with the door closed, of course. Puppies tend to get into mischief, and there wasn't much harm she could do in the kitchen. Little Lady sniffed all around the kitchen, then curled up in her box and went to sleep. At first, the cubs argued about whose turn it was to feed, water, and walk the pup. "It's my turn!" "No, it's my turn!" But after a while, they began to argue about whose turn it wasn't. "It's your turn. I cleaned up after the last accident." "No, it's your turn. I cleaned up after the last accident." Mama solved that problem by posting a puppy care schedule on the wall. Not that the puppy was all work and no fun. Little Lady was, indeed, a lot of fun. In fact, it was so much fun watching her that the Bear family didn't watch much television anymore. She chased her tail, she did somersaults, she fought her rubber dog bone. She got into the strangest positions. Also, of course, she grew. She grew so much that the Bear family started to call her Lady instead of Little Lady, and, like all puppies, she loved to chew. Then one day, somebody forgot to close the kitchen door while the family went shopping. When they got back, they found that Lady had chewed up half the living room. The time had come for Lady to have her own house out in the yard. Papa built a fine, sturdy doghouse, then he chicken wired the fence to keep her safely in the yard. Lady loved her house. She was even more fun in the yard than she was in the house. She chased leaves in the fall, snowflakes in the winter, cherry blossoms in the spring, and butterflies in the summer. And as the years went by, Lady became more than a pet. She became another member of the family to love and enjoy. Alright, so now we're going to go into our next book, which is Chrysanthemum by Kevin Hinks. The day she was born was the happiest day in her parents' lives. "She's perfect," said her mother. "Absolutely," said her father. And she was. She was absolutely perfect. "Her name must be everything she is," said her mother. "Her name must be absolutely perfect," said her father. And it was. Chrysanthemum. Her parents named her Chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum grew and grew and grew. And when she was old enough to appreciate it, Chrysanthemum loved her name. She loved the way it sounded when her mother woke her up. She loved the way it sounded when her father called her for dinner. And she loved the way it sounded when she whispered it to herself in the mirror. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum loved the way her name looked when it was written with ink on an envelope. She loved the way it looked when it was written in icing on her birthday cake. And she loved the way it looked when she wrote it herself with her fat orange crayon. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum thought her name was absolutely perfect. And then she started school. On the first day, Chrysanthemum wore her sunniest dress and her brightest smile. She ran all the way. "Hooray," said Chrysanthemum, "school!" But when Mrs. Chudd took roll call, everyone giggled upon hearing Chrysanthemum's name. "It's so long," said Joe. "It scarcely fits on your name tag," said Rita, pointing. "I'm named after my grandmother," said Victoria. "You're named after a flower." Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. The rest of the day was not much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and informed Mrs. Chudd that Chrysanthemum's name was spelled with 13 letters. "That's exactly half as many letters as there are in the entire alphabet," Victoria explained. "Thank you for sharing that with us, Victoria," said Mrs. Chudd. "Now put your head down." "If I had a name like yours, I'd change it," Victoria said, as the students lined up to go home. "I wish I could," thought Chrysanthemum miserably. "Welcome home," said her mother. "Welcome home," said her father. "School is no place for me," said Chrysanthemum. "My name is too long. It scarcely fits on my name tag, and I'm named after a flower." "Oh, pish," said her mother. "Your name is beautiful, and precious and priceless and fascinating and winsome, said her father. It's everything you are, said her mother. Absolutely perfect, said her father. Chrysanthemum felt much better after her favorite dinner, macaroni and cheese with ketchup, and an evening filled with hugs and kisses and parcheesi. That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that her name was Jane, and it was a very extremely pleasant dream. The next morning, Chrysanthemum wore her most comfortable jumper. She walked to school as slowly as she could. She dragged her feet in the dirt. Chrysanthemum, 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 she wrote. She even looks like a flower, said Victoria, as Chrysanthemum entered the playground. Let's pick her, said Rita, pointing. Let's smell her, said Joe. Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. The rest of the day was not much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and said, "A chrysanthemum is a flower. It lives in a garden with worms and other dirty things." "Thank you for sharing that with us, Victoria," said Mrs. Chudd. "Now put your head down." "I just cannot believe your name," Victoria said, as the students lined up to go home. "Neither can I," thought Chrysanthemum miserably. "Welcome home," said her mother. "Welcome home," said her father. "School is no place for me," said Chrysanthemum. "They said I even look like a flower. They pretended to pick me and smell me." "Oh, pish," said her mother. "They're just jealous, and envious, and begrudging, and discontented, and jaundiced," said her father. "Who wouldn't be jealous of a name like yours?" said her mother. "After all, it's absolutely perfect," said her father. Chrysanthemum felt a trifle better after her favorite dessert, chocolate cake with buttercream frosting, and another evening filled with hugs and kisses and parcheesi. That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that she really was a chrysanthemum. She sprouted leaves and petals. Victoria picked her and plucked the leaves and petals one by one until there was nothing left but a scrawny stem. It was the worst nightmare of Chrysanthemum's life. Chrysanthemum wore her outfit with 7 pockets the next morning. She loaded the pockets with her most prized possession and her good luck charms. Chrysanthemum took the longest route possible to school. She stopped and stared at each and every flower. "Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum," the flowers seemed to say. That morning, the students were introduced to Mrs. Twinkle, the music teacher. Her voice was like something out of a dream, as was everything else about her. The students were speechless. They thought Mrs. Twinkle was an indescribable wonder. They went out of their way to make a nice impression. Mrs. Twinkle led the students in scales. Then she assigned roles for the class musicale. Victoria was chosen as the dainty fairy queen. Rita was chosen as the spiffy butterfly princess. Joe was chosen as the all-important pixie messenger. And Chrysanthemum was chosen as a daisy. "Chrysanthemum's a daisy, chrysanthemum's a daisy," Joe, Rita, and Victoria chanted, thinking it was wildly funny. Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. "What's so humorous?" asked Miss Twinkle. "Chrysanthemum," was the answer. "Her name is so long," said Joe. "It scarcely fits her name tag," said Rita, pointing. "I'm named after my grandmother," said Victoria. "She's named after a flower." "My name is long," said Mrs. Twinkle. "It is," said Joe. "My name would scarcely fit on a name tag," said Mrs. Twinkle. "It would?" said Rita, pointing. "And," said Mrs. Twinkle, "I'm named after a flower, too." "You are?" said Victoria. "Yes," and said Mrs. Twinkle. "My name is Delphinium, Delphinium Twinkle. And if my baby is a girl, I'm considering Chrysanthemum as a name. I think it's absolutely perfect." Chrysanthemum could scarcely believe her ears. She blushed. She beamed. She bloomed. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Joe, Rita, and Victoria looked at Chrysanthemum longingly. "Call me Marigold," said Joe. "I'm Carnation," said Rita, pointing. "My name is Lily of the Valley," said Victoria. Chrysanthemum did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She knew it. Alrighty. Oh, okay. Sorry. All right, thank you guys for listening. Thank you to the Nevada Conservation League for inviting me here today, and we'll see you next weekend. Bye.